you going to sit here?
I'm going to sit right here,
That's
yeah.
good.
Well, I first of all can't thank you,
Thank you, Scott.
enough for doing this.
Sure. Go ahead.
And I was saying, normally I would just thank you for the interview, but this weekend I have to thank you for your service as well.
No, don't worry about that.
Well,
it was my pleasure.
Well, to begin with, I hope I can ask you. I understand the first time you ever won over an audience was when you were only an infant.
Well, look at. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and my father came from Glasgow, Scotland. My mother was Irish descent, and we were in burlesque. My father was a burlesque comic. My mother was, even before she met my father, was in Miller's Maidens. We were at a boarding house where I was born. We didn't have $3 or $2. I was delivered on a boarding room table by a Chinese doctor. They slapped me on my fanny and said, "Start breathing, kid. You've been resting for 9 months. It's time to get to work." Anyway, my father and mother were so poor, I can't believe it. They didn't have money to buy food. Later on in life, everybody thought burlesque was a tawdry show, that there was something naughty about it, and they misused it. But it wasn't, because they had jokes in it, and they had girls that danced. My father used to be called Hey Hey Yo, and they had jokes that today most of the comedians came from. I mean, they were old and then why does a chicken cross the street? I don't know, why does a chicken cross the street? Get the other side. Who was that lady I saw you with last night? That's no lady. That was my wife. You know, and then people laugh.
Right.
And my father and mother, my father was trying to make good. He was a stagehand, set lights. They worked, everybody worked in it. And my mother and the dressing rooms were just barely a curtain and people to sit. Well, finally I went to Kansas City because my mother and father separated. And I went to Kansas City where my Uncle Wade was a steam fitter for high school. And my mother's brothers, Charlie and Harry Carter, they worked for railroads. One was a flatman, because railroads were somewhat. So my Digi, who was got married. She had gone to the University of Missouri, I think, at that time. And she was a graduate, very, very bright lady. But there was no work. It was, you know, now I've graduated, what can I do with what I've learned? I guess. So, we didn't have anything to eat, even in Kansas City. We had mush in the morning, mush for lunch, and mush for dinner. And the dog that she had was called Siggy, and they had to feed him. And every night when I went to bed, I'd hear the trains, and I'd say, "Gee, I wonder where they're going, Mom. Well, someday we'll go to." She was a telephone operator. She got it. And then after that went on for, I don't forget, we used to go to the movies. And it was a nickel. And you sat on the bench. And so finally, my mother said, "We've had enough of this. I'm going to take you to California." Well, I had been in the show.
The vaudeville show. The
burlesque show.
The burlesque, pardon me, yes.
Yeah, and I did a couple of jokes for the straight man. And I sang a song called Pal of My Cradle Days. So then she said, "I'm going to take you to California." Well, I had some suits that had been made for me. And so she used to look in the paper and see what they were doing every day, and they were casting this and that. So he took me out to the old Idaho studio, which later became Warner Brothers. And I was in the casting director's office with my cane, and he said, "Gee, you can talk." He says, "Oh yeah, I can walk." And he said, "Well, we'd like you to do this picture with Gully Moore. It's a silent picture." I said, "Well, it was wonderful." He said, "You just have a couple of lines like, 'Gee, kid, you look great in your coat.'" So I tried out and they hired me. Al Santel was the director. Camera. Not a big set. I walked through the door and she was on the telephone operator. And I said, "Gee, baby, you look great in a coat." He said, "Well, I can't. That's ridiculous. You're a fresh little thing. Get out of here." So I went back through the door. That was the scene. That was the start of it.
I understand there's a neat story behind how Joseph Ewell Jr. became Mickey Rooney. Can you explain why that came about?
Well, that happens a long time when I'm telling you, because I worked with Ken Maynard and Buck Jones, and they cast me in a picture with Tom Mix called My Pal the King. And so somebody said, "Well, gee, we got to change his name from Joe Ewell." Then Larry Darmore was doing a series of comedies, not our gang, but comedies, called The Mickey McGuire. And the studio was broken down and everything. And my mother, we'd had to, I was doing pretty good, so we did enough to get some rent. We moved from place to place. And I still hadn't gone to school yet. And I've always because I know where I came from. And so I couldn't read at that time. I was too young. I wasn't having working anymore. So finally I went to Vine Street School.
These Mickey McGuire...
I made about 85 of those. They were silents, because all silent pictures at that time. And then they started to become talkies. And
that led to your name change? How did your name become Mickey?
I became Joe Ewell, Mickey McGuire.
Oh, okay.
And I was Mickey McGuire. And I finished the pictures. We were in the LA River and everything else. Dogs and things. I had a stick in my mouth and rolled up and checkered shirt. And this was from the comic section. I don't know why they did that, but they did it. I made a lot of them. Finally, somebody along the way, I don't know their name, they said we got to change his name from Mickey McGuire. And he said, Rooney came out, but it wasn't Pat Rooney or and Mickey and Mickey McGuire. They liked Mickey, but they changed my name to Rooney. So I've been Rooney ever since.
Did you approve of the name change? Were you happy about it?
Well, certainly. I mean, you know, but it's a funny thing how people in the show business change their name. For instance, very few people know that Cary Grant was Archibald Leach. And well, many people changed their names.
So after you had this successful string of the Mickey McGuire movies, how did you end up at MGM?
Well, I used to play ping pong. I was always athletic, and my mother, I joined the tennis club, and I met other players, and there was a junior locker room, and my picture is still there on the wall. Ted Schroeder, and I played tennis. Then I went to Fairfax High School and I played football, beat football. I graduated from high school, and the ping pong tournaments used to draw a lot of people and players from all over. Don Siegel, who later was a director, and Manda Korea, and there were a lot of people, Bobby Riggs, even though he was a tennis player.
Right.
Played.
Was that where you were? Well, I'm curious because I wonder you had even before high school you had been obviously acting already for a long time.
But nothing's stable.
Right. So I'm wondering, how did MGM come
I'm
to
gonna
that?
tell you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
Getting to that.
Okay.
And who was sitting there but David O. Selznick?
Oh, okay.
And he called me over. He said, "Hey, you're quite well, thank you." He said, "You're an actor?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "My uncle runs Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer." I said, "What is his name?" He said, "Louis Mayer." I said, "I'm going to tell him about you. Would you get him over there?" I said, "Wonderful." So I went over to Metro, and it was now change. It's the big company bought it, whatever. Star.
Oh, I know what you
Sony.
mean. Sony, yeah.
And so things have changed. You know, from the days of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Judy and I doing musicals and
well, this
I made at Metro. I made 19 Annie Hardy.
I definitely want to ask you about that, but I just wonder, the first time you were on the MGM lot and you saw this whole operation, what were your first impressions? What was the lot like?
Well, it was like a machine. They had so many to do, and they did. They had I practically helped build Metro.
I know.
And my name is still on one of the buildings down there. They named the building after me, and Jan and I were there one day, and we saw our picture taken. But along the way, with the pictures and everything, I was very lonely. And I'd gone to the University of Southern California for a year and a half, and I couldn't keep up that, and then
And also,
work.
but do you remember, like, literally the first day that you went on there and you saw all of this for the first time? Do you remember what your impression was? Were you kind of in awe? I've interviewed other people that
Let me
said,
tell you this.
yeah.
It was big. And if anything else, it was a factory. They hammered them out with this.
Right.
And they made them in a week. They found out that I could sing, I could dance, play some instruments. And Arthur Freed, who had produced, and somebody else who had produced it was later on.
Yeah.
And of course, then I was married, David Garland.
Sure.
And was very happy, and she was too. We were married about 3 months. Then I married 7 more times before I met this lovely lady.
Sure.
And I found that she was my life and my home.
A lot of young people today couldn't even tell you what the M and the G and the M stand for in MGM, let alone anything about...
Oh, let's not get into the youngsters today.
Okay. No, well, that's not my point of the question. Is not to talk about the young people today. My point was, if they can't even tell you about what MGM stands for, they certainly can't tell you about Louis V. Mayer. So I wanted to ask you if you could explain what he was like as a man, what he was like to work for.
They can if they watch TCM.
That's right, and I'm trying to encourage that, absolutely. But, you know, you're one of the few people that can tell them who Louis B. Mayer was and what he was like.
There were books written after he died. And see, the big boss was in New York, Lowe's Incorporated. Mm-hmm. And he had been friends with Samuel Goldwyn. Mm-hmm. And all of the Jewish people were in the entertainment business, and they knew, you know, there's no sin in wanting to make money.
No.
Huh?
No, you're right.
And they were smart. Adolph Zucker and all of these people, and Carl Laemmle at Universal, and they developed these personalities like Lon Chaney, and they had pictures to do, and then Columbia, Harry Cohn came along. Harry Cohn and Columbia, so did Cohn, Carl Laemmle, and then the Warner Brothers, Harry, and a little later on, from the first picture that I made there with Colleen Moore. And, I did Midsummer Night's Dream at Warner Brothers. And I was about 7. But they wanted to make that. That's because I'm getting ahead of myself. That's after I did it at the Hollywood Bowl Park. And things were going great for us. But what, you know, you always ask yourself, what next?
May I jump backwards, though, for just 1 second? Because I know you mentioned that David O. Selznick introduced you to Louis B. Mayer, but now you meet Louis B. Mayer, and he's got this massive office, and he's running the studio.
Big light office, yeah.
Can you tell the people about that?
Ida Koberman, who used to be Herbert Hoover's secretary, was his, and they were all gentle, but they seemed to be driven. Driving this machinery. It isn't easy to be the head of a studio. You have to props, cameramen, and developing this and that, and so on. Cameraman and all of them. Sound came in, and then you had Merle Pye and Dory Sherry later on. 19 Andy Hardy films.
Right.
And Killer McCoy and this and that. Oh, I've made 361.
That's unbelievable.
Pictures. Nobody will ever.
No. Well, one of the...
I made some good, some were so bad, they weren't released, they escaped.
Yeah. Another thing people I've interviewed often talk about is MGM's Little Red Schoolhouse. Can you
Well, it wasn't a red.
It wasn't a red, pardon me.
It was just a building, not a building. It was just it was someplace that they had 4 or 5 desks. And
you went there for a lot of years?
No.
No?
No. Gosh, I just until after I graduated from high school, I didn't have to.
You didn't have to.
I showed up.
Who were some of the other young actors that were there when you were there?
I see, I'm ahead of myself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Judy Garland, Frances Gum came here from somewhere, and they were at a thing in Hollywood. I met her. We were good friends.
That was at Lawler's?
Lawler's. And she went there and worked, and we did pictures, and she did all kinds of pictures today, and that you would see on TCM. But the fact is that there was so much demanded of her.
I understand, yeah. It was, well...
And she got hooked.
I want to come to that, but first I have to ask you, so, you know, again, many young
people... Well, I got hooked. And I partner died. Mm-hmm. But...
Well, you both...
She stuck by me, and it wasn't easy on her.
I'm sure.
And... But if I told you how many people are hooked today,
it dwarfs it, right?
But let's not talk about that.
Well, how did they decide that you were going to be Andy Hardy?
I had done a picture called Third Rates Don't Cry, which was played just recently, and once in a while you'll see another picture I did, and. Or I was in, and I did a picture. They finally put this picture, and I made a picture called National Velvet.
Yes.
With a young girl called Elizabeth Taylor.
But you'd already been doing Andy Hardy movies. I'm curious, how did they decide you? Because you were so great as Andy Hardy. How did they?
Well, Andy Hardy, at one time, qualified. Supported it, made 55% of the gross profits. In the meantime...
Yeah, they weren't very generous with it.
Well, that's the way it is, I guess.
It must... I just can't... I can't fathom... When you look at what some of the movie stars today, quote-unquote movie stars, who aren't even that great, what they earn...
But here's the thing. If you think about today, they have lawyers... publicists, those are all money.
That's true.
And they have to pay for their food, their car, and their so-and-so, and security that they that.
Right. Somebody who has never seen an Andy Hardy movie, if you were asked to explain to them, who was Andy Hardy and what were these films all about? Why were they so popular?
Americana. Values. Values. It was something the family wanted to see. The man-to-man talks with Willis Stone and the family.
Yeah.
And Andy getting under control more.
Right.
So many of the young starlets they put in the Andy Hardy pictures. And they didn't put Esther Williams.
I was going to say, Catherine Grayson, Donna Reed, Ann Rutherford, Lana Turner, Esther Williams, they all started with you.
Ann Rutherford is one of our dearest friends today.
One thing that I read that people argue is that during the Great Depression, one of the reasons, maybe part of what made the Andy Hardy movies so popular was that they saw you with all your youth and energy and optimism, and it made them feel better. What do you think about that?
But you're beating the gun. I mean, 1929.
Yeah.
I was 9 years old when the stock market crashed.
Right.
So there's a lot
but
about 9-year-olds.
But what I'm saying is, for a number of years after, people were still feeling the effects, and I think you made them. You show your energy and optimism. Everything seemed to make people. I mean, you were the top box office star. I don't need to tell you. You're playing the piano. You're playing the drums. Was this purely God-given natural talent, or were you working hard?
I think it's much like my grandson. He likes to play Harrison. You see, people forget. You only have one, not two, childhoods. I have never had a sister or brother. This is my family, this lady.
You made a lot of movies about historic subjects.
Yes. I made a picture called Young Tom Edison.
Sure. Absolutely.
And that formed my mind to write, to learn about Thomas Alva Edison, the light that we take with it. There's a book I have at home right now called The Wizard of Menlo Park.
Yep.
The autobiography of Thomas Alva Edison, the man who discovered the world. And I get in and I read a chapter even today. And I'd say, I'm so thankful to God for him. Because without him,
we're in the dark.
well, but then he said, but then he discovered records, the record business,
He was great.
the motion picture business.
Yeah.
He used to sleep 4 hours a night.
Oh, he was amazing.
And somebody said to him, why do you sleep so little, Mr. Edison? He said, I have more to invent. I can't keep my mind asleep for 8 hours.
Just a
Now,
slight.
Spencer Tracy played him as a man.
I remember that.
And if they would show these two at schools today,
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
what?
That would be very helpful. MGM made a lot of these great biopics that, you know.
Well, when I did Huckleberry Finn,
Yeah.
those are real.
Yeah. Well, I just want to ask you though quickly about Judy Garland, because you guys worked so well together. Why do you think that was? Why did you guys bring out the best in each other?
I think and Busby Berkeley, and we had songs that you could sing, that you remember the lyrics.
Many great ones.
And I was a songwriter. And the first, I wrote a song called Have a Heart, which the Roosevelt used because he was paralyzed. And give a dime. He'd say, give a dime. And they used that. Irving Berlin published it.
Not bad. Not bad.
And I made a lot of horse race.
Yes. I felt the black stuff.
And I started to think about the whole lot of races too.
Yeah.
And I lost a lot of money. I mean, a lot.
I can imagine.
I went bankrupt. And I reserved, you know. And I said, this got to stop.
Yeah.
So that stopped.
A lot of people who see you and Judy Garland in movies together, they wonder, were these guys off screen? Were they friends? Were they dating? It seems so convincing that you would be in. Were you ever more than
Oh,
a friend?
no. Because you don't ever go with people
You're working with it.
well, we work together. But we're a team.
Right.
But and we love that.
But Judy,
She sings and we sing.
Judy, it was not that. It was just friendship. How would you describe? Did you guys hang out a lot when you weren't making?
Didn't hang out at all. I
No.
left the studio and went home.
Yeah.
Tried to figure out what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't doing the right things.
How do you mean?
I was going to the races.
Even as a young actor?
What was it? I'm talking about 26, 27 years old.
But I'm wondering, when you were making these Andy Hardy movies, and when you're working with the Babes in Arms and Babes on Broadway and all these movies that you did in the late 30s, early 40s, what was your social? Did you have were you able to have a social life, or was your life totally work?
I was alone. I didn't want to be around people, but I wanted to be just to be there with the people who really genuinely.
There are virtually nobody else has ever lived an entire lifespan in front of a camera. Because if you think about it, from every year of your life, you could almost point at a video or a film of it. Who else can say that? There's not. Most people either they have peaks or valleys. They go away. They start late or they finish early or whatever. But here, how many other people have? I mean, you mentioned 385 films or however many it is, maybe even more. 361. And
with Night in the Museum.
But if you look at, if we were to make a timeline, map it out literally across,
But
there's
20th
no
century
gap.
box has changed too.
But I think it's amazing that you have been so consistently working and putting out great films. I mean, you can point at every decade, and we can find at least one or two from every decade that everybody knows about, everybody needs to see.
And they're still doing it
And
to
still
this
doing
day.
it. Yeah, I think it's... So I just wonder where you get such drive from to keep going. Because most people poop out after a while. They either can't do it or they're not wanted anymore, and people still love you.
Wait a minute. This is a motor.
Yeah.
This was never meant to last.
Was it religion or morals what was it that led you to decide to serve during World War II when many other people found reasons not to?
It happened this way. I was in Honolulu, and Les Peterson was assigned to be with him. And we had to go down there for something over the street. And we went by boat. There was no plane. It took us 5 days to get from San Francisco to Honolulu. 4 days. 4 days and 3 days, 4 nights. And we left 2 days before Pearl Harbor.
Oh, wow.
When I got home, I went to my mother and I said, Mother, I'm let's go in the studio.
Hit the roof.
So, he said, well, we're going to give you a shot and your blood pressure will be a little too high.
They said that.
Yeah, but I'm not the only one.
No, I'm sure.
I said, not with me, you won't. So I was inducted and went to, forget who was there. Dick King's brother. He was there.
This was where? This was in
Fort Hamilton.
in Fort Hamilton, yeah.
And we were assigned, we were sent from there by training to work. Basic training.
Was that Fort Riley, Kansas? Yeah.
Who do you think was the head commandant at Fort Riley? It was cavalry.
I believe I read, and I was amazed. That's the only reason, because I've already read it. But is it true that Patton was your guy? That's amazing.
He wasn't my guy.
Well, your commander.
He was the head.
Wow. So what was that like?
Well, I never had a chance to meet him.
Yeah. Maybe people don't realize what was the Special Services Battalion? What kind of work was involved with that? Because I think it was very important work that you guys were doing.
What did you say?
The Special Services.
What special service? I was in the Army.
It was called Special Services.
I was just a cold hand soldier.
I know.
There's no special.
Yeah, you were attached as a special service. I have your medal, your records.
I'm not. I think that was an additional thing that you went over and above and entertained.
Yeah.
And entertained troops as well.
Just like the Navy SEALs or Special
You
Service.
don't know anything about it.
I mean, he had to
My
go to
director had gone to Washington.
Josh Logan.
Josh Logan. And he explained to those in charge of Jeep shows. Jeep shows. Three men in Jeep that were assigned to the armies and entertained day or night, night and day. Well, I was with two gentlemen, I'll never forget, Mario Peroni, who played, and Bob Priester, who drove and took care of us. He was a very caring man. Well, we did this for 3 years, 2.5 years. We were at DK.
you surfed throughout Europe, right? Many different places.
Yes, and you never know where you're going to shoot. Hygiene was a thing to forget about. Where you were going to eat, what you did. Which is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Now, we have the 4th of July tomorrow.
Yes.
The thing that I think about is not fireworks, but that's art for children. They're dangerous, too. You gotta be very careful.
What does the 4th of July mean to you when not fireworks, but what do you think about on the 4th of July?
It's Declaration of Independence. It's the founding fathers who said, through the Declaration, that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and faith in God can be separated. But they try to separate it, but you can't.
What are you? If you were to pass along a message today, we've got American troops in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Oh, God, and I think about them all the time.
What would you say to them if you could pass along a message to them tomorrow? What would you like them to hear from you?
Jen and I both feel the same way. Whether it's Army, Marine, Navy. You don't realize. If I told you, do you know, and other people, did you know that Jimmy Stewart was a 2-star general in the Air Force? Did you know that Clark Gable had 38 missions in a B-47? So I won. And Charles Powell was a naval pilot. Do you know the most decorated soldier in the world, never will be again, was an actor?
Is that Audie Murphy? Yeah.
So my Bronze Star that I have from Japan is one that I'm very proud of. But a lot of people have a Bronze Star. Nurses. But just to have been recognized.
It's wonderful.
And I'm no hero. I did nothing.
Yes, you are.
I think anybody that served is greatly
You
appreciated.
put yourself in harm's way, Mickey.
Oh, God, yes, but so did the other people.
Yes, but you went way beyond the call of duty.
And it's very different than, this is not,
I know, but the TV show the same way. They did the same thing. Maybe they didn't have the name I had, but
You all worked together and you
You know, the thing that after the war, I was assigned to Radio USA in Regensburg. And I used to play records and say, hi, this is Mickey Rooney troops. I guess you're going home, you'll be glad. And I waited to go home too. And finally, I had a chance to go home. I got in the train. It was a boxcar. We stopped at a communication thing and they looked at your tag and looked at your dog tag, how many points you had. Before that, I went to the lair after the war with a group of other people. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
Eagles Lair.
Hitler's Lair.
Yeah, I think I do.
And, but I was with some other fellows too. And I found stationery and things that, like cameras, and I had them packed away, so just sent home. Never got there.
What happened?
The ship was sunk.
Oh.
You know.
Jeez.
But there was a lot of people, even the men who had.
But what I understand is, here you are, the #1 star of the world. You're bigger than Tom
That's right,
Cruise.
yeah.
You're bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you go and enlist. You know.
There's nobody in Iraq or Afghanistan.
There's no
He was the
There's nobody.
No, you're right.
#1 star of the world. Chris
Right,
is right.
absolutely right. Here you are, and what it makes me wonder is being such a famous person at that time. Also, how were you able to be just another one of the guys, or were you?
Yeah, I could get killed just like anybody else.
No, I understand that, but I mean, could you just hang out with people, or were they always asking for photographs and autographs?
Well, that's normal.
Yeah,
His normal.
that's right.
But you see, he really has no line of demarcation
How is
there. He doesn't
how are
know.
You yeah, but you
Good
would.
question, Scott.
Well, I appreciate it. And I can't. I think it's so great that you were there, and what I wonder is, it might have almost been. That was the one time in your life where you were not constantly having to act and do things. So it might have been an interesting time for you.
I hate to disrupt what you're thinking.
No, please.
Everything in our lives
Yeah.
are a new adventure.
Yeah.
That's what life is. It's an adventure.
But Mickey, your life as compared to the average Joe is 180 degrees.
I'm no different.
Well,
People
see,
think so. That it's different.
no,
It's
you're
different.
no different, but your world was different, and the way people looked up to you, and the way they treated you, and they did respect you. But
But a lot of people were jealous of him too.
I'm
A
sure.
lot of people didn't like
good
him.
point, Chris.
Oh,
You know?
listen, if you think that
It's that way
everybody
now.
likes you,
It's
you're
that
right,
way
you're
now.
crazy. But you try.
Who were sort of your role models, your heroes?
I had nobody in front of me.
Nobody.
No, just
Well,
God.
Mickey, you did.
what do I do next?
Mickey, you did have some heroes.
What do I do next? God.
Was it always that way, or did you? Because you found.
No, but I wanted to be, and it is now.
Yeah.
You didn't like Clark
My
Gable though?
wife.
You didn't like Clark Gable when you were in the studios?
Well, sure I did.
I mean, didn't you admire him? Didn't you say, "Wow, I'd like to
And
be like
Tracy.
Clark"? Oh, Tracy
Yes,
and
Tracy
Wallace
was
Burry.
a very dear friend of ours.
I mean, you had the biggest stars in the world around you,
Right, and
and then you were able to talk to them. You know,
Yeah, but you see,
Will Rogers. He's the only person that's alive today that's worked with Will Rogers.
That's true.
Tom Mix. I mean, how could you not
that's
just?
true. I could go into a lot of things like that, but
well,
working with Jan, they're not working. That's a pleasure.
Well, thanks.
yeah. This has nothing to do with anything,
Let's
but
be
is it
careful.
true that Mickey Mouse was named after you?
I didn't want to mention it, but it is true.
Can you
I was doing
make sure?
Mickey McGuire comedy. I was walking out of the, we were going to lunch, and the offices were dank and dark, and I saw the silhouette, and I walked in, I peeked in and I said, "Hello, who was there?" He says, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Mickey McGuire." "Who are you?" And he says, "My name is Walt Disney." He goes, "Come on in, I'll show you something." So he showed me a picture of a mouse. And I said, "That's wonderful." I said, "What do you call him?" He says, "Mortimer Mouse." "Mortimer Mouse?" I said, "It's wonderful." He said, "Thanks, Mickey."
Life's one.
How would you like it if I did this?
That's great.
That's how it's done.
That's great. And there, any Mickeys after have copied you, right? Mickey Mantle
Well, you know,
must have been
I
copied.
brought Brett Skelton
Yeah.
to Sammy Davis.
And didn't you name Marilyn Monroe? Did you come up with the name Marilyn
Sinatra,
Monroe?
yes.
How did that
Sinatra,
happen?
well, that's
That's another issue. All right.
But anyway, Sinatra, he was with Tommy Dorsey's band, and he's a nice guy from Hoboken. And I said to Mr. Mayor, I think you were singing,
There he was. Well, I really appreciate you making the time to speak with us
It's all
today.
right, it was a pleasure.